Can you hear
Yeah, Steve, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
the camera to go here for some reason?
Oh, you're okay. Okay. All right. Now we should be good. We're recording.
Austin,
Yes.
see Stim. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You good? All right. Okay. Make sure I had that recording. Now we're good to go. All right. So just a reminder, obviously keep your mute your mics if you haven't already. That'll just help with everything going on until you're speaking, and that'll just help with the facilitation of our meeting tonight. Couple of other reminders. We will have a question period at the end. So if you have questions, put it in the chat. If you need to raise your hand because the question's a little more in depth and you need to, it's hard to explain over just texting over the chat, go ahead and raise your hand. One thing we'll ask tonight is that we have a couple different topics we're going to hit. So when you do ask a question at the time we're talking about a topic, we're only going to take questions related to that topic. So when we talk about pregame protocol and all that, during that segment, the only questions we'll talk about is the pregame stuff, right? So any questions outside of what that topic is at that moment, we're going to wait till the end of the meeting. So that way we can facilitate. That way we don't bring up stuff we already have planned to bring up tonight. So hopefully that makes sense. So keep your questions limited to the task or to the topic at hand. Everything else will be covered in the question and answer period at the end. All right. So first thing we're going to start out with Arbiter Pay. A lot of our sections are going to probably use Arbiter Pay if you haven't set up your account already. Very easy to do. As you can see on the screen, all you have to do, there is a tab at the top on your Arbiter page that says Payment. You can do this under MN Officials Group. You can do this under Section Officials Group. Basically, any of the groups you're in, you're able to set this up. So the only thing you'll do is on the left side, on this side, you just set up your account. It'll ask for your banking information, and you should be good to go. When you do have funds, you can see like Delano. If you've worked at Delano, you very well know the system. They put the money in, and all you have to do is transfer the money to your account. All right. So just be aware that most of our sections are going to use Arbiter Pay to do some of their pay. They may use vouchers. Just make sure you're checking in with the schools when you get there, and that'll all be kind of your check-in process. Okay, Mike, we'll take it over to you for just kind of general section updates and assigning.
All right, yeah. I've sent out a bunch of texts already for the 26th, the 28th, and the 29th to all the crews, basically making sure that the R will check in and email the school's AD. Now, I've already had some where I've had emails sent out where they've thought the AD was Rick Johns. Well, Rick Johns is not the AD. He is the section supervisor. So they may not have the AD on Arbiter. That being the case, Minnesota State High School League website will have that. Just go onto the MSHSL website, go under schools, and there is a search area there to filter through text. Click on the school and go all the way to the bottom. It'll have the AD and the AD's email and phone number there. So make sure you utilize that. And then also add me onto the email as well. You can see on the screen there my email address. So that way the communication with the crew and the host AD and myself, if there's any problems, that way that we can all be part of that. If it is a neutral site, I would email both ADs that are playing until we have an idea of who the teams are that are playing. Hopefully we don't have to do that, but if we do, then let's do that. Again, my email is there. It's a couple times on the slide there. So if you have any questions, once I text the crews, just text back if there's any questions that way. That's all I got. You're muted, Austin. One other thing there is when the games are updated, I'll get an email from the section coordinator as to who's playing who, and once the games are played and we're going to update either the quarterfinal or the semifinal or the final, you'll need to go back in and check in your arbiter and re-accept the game, because once there's changes on there, it'll just republicize it. So go in and re-accept those games so we know that the game is still covered.
Cool. Awesome. So if you're in doubt on who you should contact for the site, reach out to Mike. We want to make sure we're contacting everyone and the appropriate people. Reminder, double check your arbiter daily still, because once those teams do change, if there's a site change, anything, you have to go in and re-accept it. All right. Steve, we'll let you go and go ahead and take over. No, he was just in here. He might have got kicked out.
Steve, you're muted.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Let me move this out of the way. All right. Yeah, I will pass for now. Let's have Eric, Craig, and Rick go, and then I'll catch up anything that got missed.
Perfect. Eric, why don't you take it over? So Eric's going to talk about some pregame protocol and overview. Just because we are talking about pregame protocol and overview, I'm going to try and see if I can send a couple PDFs in the chat. These are two tools that I use for my pregame when I have to give a pregame. It kind of gives a nice little rundown of spots we should cover in our pregame. So you can use this as a resource if you like. So I'm going to throw that in the chat if I can figure it out here while Eric talks, and you can check that out and use this as a tool for if you have to lead a pregame. This can kind of give you a list of different things you need to cover. We also have our Mechanics Illustrated, has a pregame rundown in there as well, right out of the high school league book. So Eric, take it away.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to make this fairly quick. Hopefully the document that Austin posts will provide a lot more detail. But in terms of section games, we want to get to the game an hour and 15 minutes before the game starts. So we're asking officials to get to the game 75 minutes before the start of the game to account for any unusual occurrences or things that might go wrong before the game starts. So we're also asking officials to pack with them a striped shirt just in case the scorer at the game is not wearing a striped shirt or there's no indication of who the scorer is. It's a lot easier when you look over at the score at the table and you know exactly who the scorer is. So if they're not wearing a striped shirt, offer them a striped shirt. If they don't want to wear it, a lot of women are sensitive to wearing stripes, which we understand. If they don't want to wear the striped shirt, then just ask them to fold the shirt or drape the shirt in front of them at the scorer's table. So when you get to the game, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you introduce yourself to site management so that you know where they are in case anything happens during the game that you will need their assistance with. Walk the court. Take a physical walk on the court to make sure everything is in place, that the nets are proper, that the goals aren't leaning. If you need to adjust the chairs on the table side, then do so to make sure you have enough room so that you can maneuver during the game. The officials can have enough room to work that side of the court, if you will. Okay, so the pregame, we're going to take the court at the 20-minute mark. Usually we'll take, during the regular season, we'll take the court anywhere between 15 and 18 minutes, but this is going to be different. We want officials on the court at the 20-minute mark. It's not a time for social hour or to visit with partners you haven't seen for a while or to talk with spectators that are coming down to talk with you. If you do have that, if spectators do come down to talk with you, let them know that you have a job to do and you will talk with them at some later point. It's a good time to identify uniform issues, especially illegal equipment. Be aware that the team wearing dark can also wear a black undershirt. So if they are wearing white, they cannot wear the black. They cannot wear the black undershirt. Want to make sure that all players are wearing the same equipment. It's solid black or solid white, and every player has to wear the same color. Don't allow any players to warm up wearing jewelry, necklaces, bracelets, etc., etc. Okay. At the 13-minute mark, we want to get the coaches and captains together. Um, we're gonna do this exactly as we do it in the state tournament. We'll have the R will face the table. The players from the respect from each team will be lined across from one another. At the end of the little tunnel that we're going to form will be the both coaches, and then the U1 and U2 should be observing their respective teams warming up. During your pregame meeting, make sure you cover all the items that are important that we normally talk about in terms of court coverage. You want to make sure that you minimize the number of double whistles if you can. You want each official to dominate their primary area. We do know that there are areas that are of dual coverage, and that's okay. So if you do have a double whistle, then come together to talk about it and defer to the primary official if you can. One of the things that Jason has talked about and that we're trying to do is we're trying to avoid the league calling plays across the lane. That's why the C is there. So if the lead doesn't flex, then we should allow the C to have first shot at a drive to the basket from his or her area. The lead can always post, and if there's no call, they can always come in with a late whistle, if you will. Talk about how you're going to handle coverage of screening. We like having 4 eyes on screening action, if you will. The screening action is usually in the area between the trail and the C, but there can also be some screening action that comes from the baseline where the lead needs to get involved. So that's the only time we really should have 4 eyes on the ball when we see a screen about to occur. So talk about how you're going to handle bench warnings, how you're going to handle technical fouls, if you will, technical fouls against coaches, technical fouls against players. I'm of the opinion where I like to bring the crew together to discuss technical fouls, make sure that there's no excuse for us to make an error during the administration of a technical foul. If all 3 officials come together to talk about it, we need to separate the teams, send the teams to their benches or separate the teams on the court, and we stand in between the teams while we talk about what needs to be talked about. Let's see. Oh, one thing I didn't mention, we were talking about the coaches and captains meeting. I'm jumping around here a little bit, but this year, in addition to the referee going over to the table, the U1 goes over to the table as well to talk about the shot clock with the shot clock operator. Make sure that the shot clock operator runs the clock all the way down, and you guys, we hear the horn, we can distinguish the shot clock horn from the game clock horn, if you will. Another thing you want to mention in the coaches and captains meeting, you want to mention to the players that they should play through the shot clock. The only thing that stops the game is an official's whistle. So make sure we share that with the officials as well. Let's go across the table at the 90-second mark, minute and a half mark. Let's go across the table to, if possible, meet the assistant coaches and to prepare for the national anthem and player introductions. So we want to be consistent with that. I've got 3 or 4 other things that I want to sort of mention that we should be aware. They may not necessarily be a part of the pregame, but well, yeah, I mean, it's stuff you should discuss during the pregame as well. So let's be cognizant of when timeouts are called and teams are crossing to their respective benches. Let's make sure we have a presence there. We've seen numerous times where a team goes on a run, there's a timeout called, and then the team that's on a run, their whole bench just runs onto the court. And now we've got to be concerned with the other team getting to their bench without any incidents. Last second shot. Let's talk about last second shots a little bit. Let's agree as an association for section assignments this year that we're going to lock the C in at the 15-second mark. Okay, so there shouldn't be a whole lot of discussion. When you have your pregame, it should already be established. Okay, we're going to lock the C in at the 15-second mark. Why do we do that? Well, we do that because if there is a made basket or if there is a turnover during that 15-second period, the same official is the calling official for the last second shot if we have to go to the other end of the court. Okay, it makes it simple. It works well. We had it the other day. We had it yesterday at the game we did, Hopkins and De La Salle, and we had a last second shot and we handled it, exactly according to the rules. So it requires, the lead can do what the lead does, but we're going to lock the C in at the 15-second mark. And if the lead flexes opposite table, and we have a made basket or we have a turnover and we're going to the other end of the court, the lead has to fill table side. All right. Call an official on a last second shot. Let's kill the shot immediately if you know the shot did not get off before the horn went off. Okay. All right. Let's not allow people to watch the flight of the ball all the way from one end of the court to the other. The ball goes in, and then all of a sudden we blow the shot dead. Okay. We can avoid all of that heartache. We can avoid all of that pain. If you know the shot didn't get off in time, kill it immediately. All right. Dead ball mechanics. Again, talk about this in your pregame. Slow down toward the end of the game. We want to avoid shooting free throws with a player on the floor who is fouled out of the game, but the table didn't inform us in time. So when we're getting toward the end of the game, we know certain players have four fouls. This may be their fifth foul. We're not exactly sure. Take your time. There's no need to be in a rush. Okay. Again, we don't need to make an administrative mistake toward the end of the game. Take our time. Communicate with the table, give the table additional time, if you will, before we shoot free throws to make sure that we're not dealing with that particular issue. Got a couple more here. We've had this happen earlier. A player already in the game cannot shoot free throws on behalf of an injured teammate who is required to leave the game. So if you have an injured player that is due to shoot free throws, their replacement is the only player on their team that can shoot free throws. So if you can't allow a player that is already in the game to shoot that player's free throws. All right, it has to be the replacement player to shoot those free throws. I sort of bounced around a little bit, but those are some of the things that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
All right, sweet. Well, thanks, Eric. If something pops up here in the Q&A that you think of, we'll hit that up.
Every rule on a truck should be. So this truck.
All right, who's up next? Is it looks like game management and end of game situations? Craig, you got the floor.
Thanks, Craig.
You there, Craig?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, go for it. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to go over some things. A couple things Eric already mentioned, so you may think it's redundant, but it's things that we definitely want to mention. Try to be as fast as I can. You know how I am. I can get long-winded. So my topic for the night is going to be protocols, game management, and in the game end of game situations. First thing I want to talk about is get into the rule book. Get the rule book in play when you're speaking at your pregame, before the game begins. These are some things that we need you to do. You're going to obviously add some things or what have you, but these are things we definitely want you to get into. Get the rule book in play. First time out. As a crew, come together. Let's get together. Let's talk about situations. Let's even make light of the situation. We want to stay loose. Remember, it's just another game, but it's not just another game. This is win or go home. Everyone's going to be hyped. When they're at 10 or 2, we have to remain at 5. When everybody's up or down, we have to be even keel. Nothing should affect us as far as our officiating, our emotions, or our attitudes. Once again, check the temperature of your crew at that first time out. Make sure everybody's on the same page, comfortable. Be a great partner. When you go into these games, be a great partner. Patient whistles, especially when it's not in your PCA, primary coverage area. Eric just mentioned double whistles. Let's try to stay away from them. Be patient when it's not your primary cover area. Uniforms. Players coming in, let's talk about, and during our pre-games, tucked in when you report to the table, tucked in during free throws and after timeouts. Mention that in your coaches and captains meeting so everyone can hear it. Coaches, help us out. We're going to be looking for uniforms tucked in before they come into the game. Players, help us out when we ask you. No walking when reporting to the table. I don't want you trying to run a 50-yard dash, but let's get a nice jog going. Come to a standstill. This is your opportunity to shine. Make sure your mechanics are sharp. Make sure you are clear. Don't be in a hurry to report them. These games are only second to the state. It's win or go home. Remember that. Take the extra precautions and measures. Excuse me, sorry about that. When it comes to reporting, communicating. Want everyone to be clear. No need to be in a hurry. When going to the table to report fouls, timeouts, warnings, etc., use team, school, name, mascot. We're getting away from black team, white team, blue team. Champlain Park, number 23. Osseo, number 13. Take your time. As you're jogging to the table, go over in your head. Team color, team name, player number. Let's make it clear, crisp, eliminate opportunities for mistakes. Intentional fouls, technical fouls. 2 officials come together, it just looks better for the optics. 3rd official, you got the catbird seat, keep an eye on the players, okay? If a crew needs to huddle, send the teams to their benches, making aware the teams and the coaches stay on the court. This way we can come together and concentrate on what we have to say. I don't care what your level of officiating is, what your status is as far as veteran, up and comer, just getting here. If you got something to add, that's the time to do it. Don't wait until we get to the locker room and want to say, well, I started to say that. Give it right then. Let's make sure we're all on the same page when we're gonna make our final decision. Let's go to end of the game management. Again, I'm gonna repeat some of the things Eric mentioned. Coaches, we're not asking you when dealing with coaches to put up with any and everything. What we are asking is that this is a much more high intensity situation. This is playoffs, win or go home again. Turn the rabbit ears volume down a little bit. We're gonna give them a few more links on the leash, okay? There's some things that are not acceptable. I don't care where we are, state tournament, sections, whatever, we're not gonna put up with. But we know intensity is gonna be higher, okay? The situation is more intense. Gonna give them a few more links on the leash, but we're not gonna put up with everything. Remember to monitor time you spend with each coach. Don't let one coach always stop your crew to have questions, okay? You don't have to answer statements. you may want to answer questions. A simple look at a coach acknowledges that you're paying attention. We don't want one coach always in our crew's ear and the other coach getting no time. Let's be mindful of that. Mention that in your pregame. Coaches, we're going to be out here working hard for you. Pick and choose your battles. The official you want to talk to will be over there at some point. But even with that being said, we're not gonna answer every question. If a coach wants to talk to you all game, you just have to shut him down. That's it. Him or her, excuse me. Don't start time for your timeouts until teams are at the benches. Mention that in your coaches and captains meeting. We will wait till you get to your benches before we start the timeout. That being said, so that you can get the full complement of your timeout. That being said, when that second horn goes off, be ready to wrap it up, send your teams back to the floor. Make sure you extensively express this, because if we get to a point where coach won't come out of timeout, then we need to take it a step further, because we can't have that happen. We have to have clock awareness at all times. End of the first half, end of the game, during the game. We need to know where the shot clock is. If you're not the calling official and you don't have a fight going on in front of you, somebody's got to see that shot clock when that whistle's blown. Because we need to know what was on the clock in case that clock needs to go back to that particular time. We're still in the process of people learning how to use the shot clock. No matter how good they think they are, there's a chance a mistake's going to be made. We get blamed for all mistakes. Take your time, be cognizant of what's taking place, go through it in your head on what you have to do. This is a situation, what we do, people expect us to be perfect and get better. Keep that in mind. Know the foul count prior to the 1-and-1 and the double bonus. Communicate, over communicate. We get to foul number 6. I don't care if you say it out loud or whatever your signal is, you pregame, let's know next foul down here is going to be 1-and-1. Because most of the time, those fouls take place at the other end of the court after a rebound, what have you. And now we need to stay on the players so we know who the shooter is going to be. If we have a double whistle and one of us is going to drop, let's make sure we both know who the foul is on and who the shooter is, if there's a shooter. Because we drop, and then all of a sudden, that's when the accident happens is, well, I thought you were going to take, well, who's the foul on? Who's the fouler? Take your time, people. This is important. You got all the time in the world. Nothing's happening until you're ready for the ball and the clock to start again. Keep that in mind. Patience. Be over patient if you have to. Eric spoke about being traffic cops. We need to be traffic cops whenever we have timeouts, free throws, whenever players are crossing. Cannot stress this enough. Dead ball officiating has to happen at all times. Somebody's got to have eyes on these players. Let's make sure they are coming up off the floor when it's a tussle or a scrum or whenever there's hard fouls. Steve mentioned this the other day. We got players on the floor after a foul or a play. Somebody needs to stay there. If you got a foul, stay there until they come up clean or your partner relieves you. Take the extra step to make sure we don't miss something that could potentially cause problems in our game, or we make the news. Now you know we're on the news. Oh, he left too soon and somebody elbowed somebody in the face. Don't be in a hurry, because some of these teams, most of these teams are going home for the rest of the season. Can't afford to make mistakes like that. Just take your time. Don't be in a hurry. Have fun. Laugh. As Steve likes to say, cry if you have to. Again, these games are only second to the state tournament. You're here for a reason. We believe in you. As Steve always says, and Eric always says, we're your greatest fans. Have fun. This is the best time to still be working. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it. Next up, we're going to have Rick Baker. Rick Baker's going to talk about communication with coaches and players. Rick, the floor is yours.
Right. Craig kind of touched on it a little bit as well. But basically just kind of be aware of perceptions, equal time to coaches, like Craig kind of hit on. kind of um yeah, like be cognizant. It's a good idea probably to pregame the coaches. Talked about the coaches. It could be the first time that you've been seeing these coaches because there's sections. We might not have these teams in the year. Might be the first time these coaches have ever seen you. So if somebody knows about a coach, whatever, it's a good idea to, pregame about that. Like Craig said, he already hit on, he kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but yeah, equal time, both coaches, you don't want to spend more time with one talking to them, especially before the game, just a quick hi, whatever. Second thing, during free throws, when there's two free throws, be at midcourt. You can talk to the coaches after, just, wait at midcourt. Then once the first shot goes up, then you can kind of slide over. If coach has a question, they can answer that. Like coach said too, we don't need to respond to comments. Coach is going to make comments all day. Hey, that's a travel, that's that, but answer their questions. But if you are going to talk to them, make sure they're in the box. And like Craig said, also allow a little more leash with coaches. He said, a little more links in your chain and your leash, because emotions are going to be higher for coaches, players, and of course us. So we gotta, stay more calm, more focused. Other than that, yeah, that's about it. In the pregame, kind of talk to coaches. I always tell them in the pregame, hey, there's three of us. We're not all looking at the same spot. You could ask me about a play, and I'm not looking there, and I'm gonna tell you, hey, I'm not looking there. They're gonna have to respect that. Calling official will be over there. Ask him at that time, him or her. And I also tell them too that yelling across court ain't gonna work tonight. So if they have a question, ask us calmly when we're in front of you. We'll talk. We'll be glad to talk about it. Another thing too, a big thing is, if you make a mistake, if you miss a call, don't be afraid to admit it. These coaches aren't idiots. Um, it's always good. You can do that probably once a game. If you miss a call, admit it. Hey, I probably missed it that way. Coach, if it happened that way, I might have missed it, but for yourself, don't talk about your partner's call, regardless of whether you agree or not. Let your partner talk for themselves about that to coaches. Other than that, that's about all I got for coaches. So
Go ahead, Kent. Kent wanted to also add another good piece here.
Thanks, Austin. Listen, I was on a game with Rick Baker, and it was a high-profile game. Hopkins girls hosted St. Michael, Aberville, and that was a big game. And I made a call. Keisha Pringle was on the game with us. I made a call that the St. Michael's coach did not like, and I was opposite from where St. Michael's were, but Rick was right in his ear, and Rick gave him more leash. It's a big game. Rick gave him more leash. Now, I was so confident in the call that I wanted to I'm gonna give this guy a warning or give this guy a technical foul because he can't be jumping on my partner like that. But I said, you know what? Rick's been refereeing for over 20 years. He's a big boy. He's probably taking it for me because the coach didn't like the call. And so I applaud you for that, Rick, in front of everybody. I want to add one thing. This has worked for me. As I talk to coaches at pregame, I tell coaches directly, we can talk like adults. If it's all men crew and all men coaches, I say we can talk like men. Or if it's a mixed crew, I say we can talk like adults, but you cannot talk at us. You cannot talk down to us. We will respect the game. If you have something to say, we can talk respectfully and we're good. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I've had like 99% of the coaches this year respect that. So I would encourage you to consider letting coaches know up front, we can talk like adults, but anything other than that ain't gonna work. So that's my 3 cents. Thanks, Austin.
Thanks, Kent. Steve, since we're doing pretty good here on time, Steve, I'll let you add anything, and then I know we've had a couple unusual plays or plays that we don't see come up every day that I think you wanted to address, so I'll let you run with that as well if you'd like.
I will. Great job, committee. And I also would like to congratulate everybody that's on this call. You were selected because of the work you did all year long. It's not a reward, as been said in the past. you're doing the job the way it's supposed to be done, and that's why you have been selected to do the section games. So take pride in that. You should be very proudful because not everybody gets the chance to do a section game. So enjoy it while you're out there. Take it all in and learn from it, and hopefully you can improve and move on. Some of the other things that the committee was just checking on here that I started. When you're there early, and Eric said as you're walking the floor, make sure there's an X down in front of the scorer, and make sure the coaches' boxes are marked. And then while you're with the captains and coaches, U1 and U2, as you're standing next to the coaches, look over each other's shoulders to watch the teams. You don't want to turn your back to the meeting. So just look over each shoulder so it shows that you're engaged with it. Blood rule. Blood rule in high school. If they have blood on them and we're sending them out, they have to sub in, or they can buy their player in with a timeout. If the timeout expires and they're not ready to go, then they need an immediate sub. But it's different than the college rule. And those of you that are fortunate enough to be doing college, time to review the differences. Too many times we've had college rules applied to a high school game and in section games. There's different rules. Review those. Same thing with the mechanics manual. Pull it off from the coffee table. It'll be wobbling a little bit, but go ahead and read it and get used to it. All the other things, all refreshers. Craig said it's only second to the state. I'm going to say it's more important than the state, because most of these teams, that's their goal, to get to state. The section final games are a lot tougher than state tournament games because of the fact that somebody's done. And this is their goal all year long for 99% of the teams. So we need to be professional at all times, above and beyond, for, during, and after. Spot mechanics, that'll slow you down and take care of almost all these other little things. You close downs as trails and centers on calls near the paint and on all shots. Know why somebody's on the floor in your primary. Protect rebounders the same way we protect shooters. But the spot mechanics will really help you out in these games. They're high intensity, and a lot of times they're some in semifinals and finals. Usually they're on neutral floors, so you have to be aware of everything around your surroundings. If there's an issue, bring it up. Don't take it to the locker room. If you're having trouble, know who your site manager is. We need to have that person. You do not get involved in throwing out any fans. You don't point to anybody. You don't do anything. You just get that person, get them to the scores table, and let them take care of it. Now, there's a couple of play situations that have come up in the last couple of weeks that they don't come up often, but that's why we need to be in the rule book. And it doesn't hurt for the crew to get together and discuss all these things. The first one involved inside the last 5 seconds, team scored, and the other team was 4.9, I believe, was the exact time they saw in there. As the team was taking the ball to step out of bounds, the team that was ahead, now we know that they don't have to throw it in, the clock stopped. Okay. We acknowledged the clock stopped and we blew our whistle. Once we do that, by rule, the other team's going to have to inbound. And what happens from there is typically what happens when we goof something up. It's, the other team scored, and on the multiple overtimes we went but need to know that by rule, if we blow the whistle to stop the clock, they're going to have to inbound. Another way to do it would have been if you stepped out of bounds and you start your count get your count going, you get to 5, game's over. Because our count supersedes anything on the clock. But this is a play that happened. Again, it was your timer. It wasn't any of the 3 officials on the floor. It was your timer. And the crew that had this, they handled it correctly if they blew the whistle. And they did blow the whistle, so it was done correctly. Unfortunately, the team that was ahead threw it in, only made 1 or 2 free throws, long pass. The other team scores, ties the game up. Overtime they go. The other one that came up involved one of our own crews, an inadvertent whistle on a free throw. So they got together, discussed it. Somebody's not going to be happy. But when we have an inadvertent whistle, if there's possession, we give them, they get the ball back. If there's no possession, then we got to go to the AP arrow. Know what happens when you call a double foul, which is a great tool. It's point of interruption. They get the ball back. Message is sent. If you're shooting multiple free throws and you got multiple technicals or you got fouls and followed by technicals, make sure let's get together, like Eric and the rest of the committee said, let's get together and talk. Shoot everything in sequence the way it happens. I had a game where we had foul, technical foul, and flagrant foul, and we shot some out of order while I was trying to explain to the coaches, but in the end, we got it all right. So take your time. Nobody be in a hurry at all. Dead balls, it's your time and your time alone. Let's not be in a hurry. And please, please enjoy yourself. Okay? The cheerleaders are on this call tonight. Those of you that are lucky enough to be at the state tournament, these are the same things we do in the state tournament that we do in the sections, except we don't have TV involved. So don't let anybody ask you questions involving anything about the game. If they need to ask you a question, it's going to come back to they can contact Mike, and then we can issue any type of statement that needs to be done. But these games are very important to us as an association. We lost a section or 2 because of something from it last year. I think this year we can win a couple more sections back by being what you've done all year. None of this should be new to you. You should enjoy it, because if you've been doing everything correctly all year long, you come to this point, now all the fruits of your labor come forward. So that's all I got.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Any questions anyone has? Anything? I don't see anything in the chat. We got about a minute left. I do think, so if any questions pop up, but I do think it is important, especially for the on-demand viewers. I think it's important for us to also, as a committee, communicate with you what the section process is for those who have questions. As a basketball committee, we all meet on a Sunday for about 3 hours and go through these selections. We have a list that we print out from Arbor of everyone who is section eligible. So if you didn't get a section game this year and you thought you should have and you're on this call, you need to make sure that you took care of all your duties, which included watching videos on Arbiter. And basically everyone on the basketball committee has input, along with looking at what Ken put together with the peer-to-peer or the peer evaluations. We brought that sheet up and used that to help us make some determinations as well. So it is a lengthy process, and everyone who is section eligible is on our list, and we go through those names and everyone gives input based on evaluations we've made through the year, games we've seen, and stuff like that. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a taste into the selection process. One other thing I wanted to add, I wasn't able to, for some reason, the file function is not working in the chat right now. So those pregame documents I'll include in a follow-up email where I'll send a recording of this meeting for everyone to watch on demand. So any questions, any last thoughts from anyone that we felt we missed and it was important for this group to know?
Along with that information, Austin, I will add that we did have probably about 20 less section games this year because of the 2 sections that we did lose. So this year we have a total of 79 section games. So compared to almost 100. So if If we're short on section games compared to last year or the year before, that's the reason why. And we have more section eligible officials this year than we've had in the past too. So spreading the wealth out to those that deserve to have a section game or two is what the committee looked at. So
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. If you do have questions, stuff pops up, if you end up having a weird play, that does happen, especially early on in sections, reach out to someone on the committee. Because sections do take a while. If we can avoid kicking a rule later down the road that someone has a question on and we can let the membership know, reach out to us. We'd love to be a part of that. Otherwise, thanks everyone for joining tonight. Have fun, enjoy it, communicate, and communicate. All right. Thanks everyone.
please remember to check your arbiter daily, more than once a day.